I'm gonna do a proper introduction to this.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, the introduction, since it's 9 o'clock straight up. I'm gonna introduce you to the class. This is the usual class you that I usually bring to your class.
Mm-hmm.
User-centered
Hello.
design. So I'm gonna do a quick room dance around the room. Um, Hey Sung and Owen, they're industrial design students. And then we have Gabriel and Maddie. They are both collab students. Gabriel's minoring in product design, Gabby in graphic design. Abby is sitting in front of us. She's an interior design student. And at the tall top tables and the cool kids in the way back are Shin and Brittany. Brittany's a collab student, and Shin is industrial design product in furniture.
All right.
Furniture.
Nice range of
So
people there.
we
That's
have it set
awesome.
up, just so you see the rest of the setup. We have a big screen TV. You're on a big screen TV. Wait for it. Wait for it. Kind of looks
Yeah,
like
that's a cool space you guys have there. Way
that
to go.
hangout, and it gets shifted around. There's two classes that play in this space most of the time.
Hmm.
Um, Mine and Zoe Carmichael's and collaborative projects. We're working with disability advocates on what does design for inclusion look like in a big sense, right? And
Mm.
so we have lunch and learns that are popping up today. Kyle, we've met people using UI UX. We've met people, um, I don't know, give me the wrap up. We have a couple more coming. DGRI is coming. Um, Laurel Stanley, UI UX. Melissa is coming from Progressive on Design Research. Thank you very much. So there's a range, and they all have a reference, or they all have a affinity with disability advocates. They work with them in some way, so they're bringing their piece of the pie. We also have a very cool stakeholder map, but I don't think I can turn that around. I'll show you that later.
Okay.
Um, so with that, take it away, everyone. Bill Fisher.
Oh yeah, it's a privilege for me to be able to come here and meet with you all. Before I start, so Gail has shared with me that you are all trying to get a Google Sites to work, and I'll get into that in a second. But before I do, just sort of as an overview, my approach to accessible design is it's been, wait a second, let me make sure I'm recording. I thought I hit the record button, but it doesn't seem like it's on. Uh, oh, it's recording. Okay. So yeah, accessible designs have been great. It's been a major improvement for persons with disabilities, but it's not, in my view, good enough. Um, I think that we're ready to take it to its next level. So the problem with accessible design is it it's strictly the requirements are strictly quantitative. Um, so there's no qualitative requirements. So as long as a sight impaired person or a hearing impaired person can get access to the information, um, that's we will meet the requirement. The experience itself doesn't have to be a quality experience. So, for instance, have you all tried to watch a show on Netflix or a video where they have audio descriptions? Do you know what audio descriptions are? Um, where they there's a version, and then there's a narrator who is trying to interject and describe the what's happening on the screen for blind persons. And they're doing it usually in a very neutral voice, and it's pretty disruptive to the flow of whatever the video is. And because they're trying to squeeze it in, they have to talk really fast, and there's a lot of things that have to get left out. Okay, so technically, a blind person can understand what's being shown on the screen, but the quality of that experience is really not the same level as the quality of the experience for somebody that can see it. So one of the things that I've been working on is a better way to do audio descriptions, and that is um, you write the audio description into the script in the first place, right? So my example is I could, it could be a video, it could be me, and maybe I'm looking into my dog's eyes, and my voice comes in as a narration, and it says, sometimes I wonder what my dog is thinking, right? So that's a scene. So with current accessible design guidelines, there would be another voice, not mine, that would interject in and say, uh, Bill's on his knees looking into his dog's eyes, right? That would have to be interjected into it. But what we could do instead is just write it into my script, into my narration. I could just say, sometimes I get on my knees, look into my dog's eyes, and wonder what they're thinking. Now, what I've done is I've described what's happening on the screen organically. Nobody would know any better that this was some kind of a thing that I did in order to make it more accessible. So they would have the same quality of experience within their sensory abilities as a sighted person. Um, and um, we don't need the extra effort and expense to add the audio descriptions. So that's just one example. I have examples like this for captions, audio descriptions, um, websites, games, color, all of these things where we can organically uh, create accessible experiences. And I'm couching that approach under the term universal design. Um, some of you may have heard of universal design. Poster child for universal design is the sidewalk curb cut, where it flattens out and there's a cut in the curb when you get to an intersection. Those were originally installed and kind of invented for persons with wheelchairs. But if you are pushing a stroller, even though that was not specifically designed for you, you really like that curb cut. Or if you're riding your bike, down the sidewalk, you really like that curb cut. And even if you're just walking and you're a perfectly capable, able person, you kind of like that curb cut. And so that's a universally better experience for everyone, no matter their abilities. And that's the goal of universal design. Um, so does anybody have any experience or questions or anything, around universal design and that approach, or have you heard of it? I think I'm kind of hearing somebody talk, but I can't really actually understand what you're saying.
I'm coming closer to the mic. Yes, this has been the point of the whole semester.
Oh,
What
okay.
what is the conversation about? The ADA and how is that minimum and how is that no big deal, right? Gets you
Yeah.
not arrested, right? Keeps you out of jail.
Right. Yeah.
And how do we build up on that? How do we think as designers more inclusively about all of the
Yeah.
things that come together? So in collaborative design, we back way up.
No,
We look
I
at
know you do. Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So that's been the intention, is that we've been looking at and comparing and contrasting a lot of points of view and noticing where other people are doing bits and parts and maybe not wholly jumping in. One of our bigger projects is working with disability advocates on an idea. How could we take what we learned in the city of Grand Rapids on inclusion and design and and it's not me, but how can we support this? Build toolkits for the outlying communities, Kentwood Walk or Granville, East Grand Rapids, so that they can start implementing in a meaningful way and through their zoning and ordinance work, a more inclusive city.
Oh, and you're talking about built environments.
All the environments, all the
Oh,
environments,
yeah.
all communication, all the thing that gets you to
Mm.
the thing,
Hmm.
all the thing about the thing, all of it, all, all,
Yeah.
all the,
Right. Because it all works
right?
together. Yeah.
Again, we're backing up.
Yeah.
So from from the details where the devil is, right? To the big ideas.
Yeah. So you know where I get the most pushback when I go to conferences and present these ideas is from the uh, companies who are offering accessibility services, because I call it the accessibility industrial complex. There have been, I don't know if it's hundreds, at least hundreds of businesses built on providing accessibility services and helping companies um, become compliant. And here comes Bill saying, "Oh, you're doing it all wrong. If you just adopt universal design the way I've using the tools and methods that I've developed, we're not going to need all these additional accessibility add-ons." And so you can see how they could feel pretty threatened by that. So I was surprised when I first started on this journey that that was going to be where I got most of my pushback. Um, there's already an accessibility legacy, I guess. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are taking a bigger picture. And I know Gail for
We
years.
also don't mind being disruptors, right?
Yes,
Just so you understand, for sure, all of these businesses were important to bringing it forward, right?
right.
And what's next? There's always a next.
Yeah,
They should be jamming on the next too. These people are going to leapfrog technologies.
yeah. Well, I think where it's going to really come to a head, probably, is when so we think about what's the next thing after the smartphone, right? There's going to be a technology that replaces that, and it's likely, I think, going to be the smart glasses, where we have video cameras and the screens right here on our glasses, and they may be. We still may have a smartphone in our pocket to begin with, that to do a lot of the heavy lifting and then send signals up through the glasses. But um, so if you imagine, let's say you're blind and you're um, navigating across town, you're just trying to walk across town, and your smart glasses are with its camera are in real time um, telling you um, what's ahead of you, when to turn left, when to turn right, and it's basically navigating you to your destination. That's a huge thing. And what's happening there is, you know, what's, you know, audio descriptions that are added on aren't going to work, because basically what this is, it's an audio description of what's happening in real time as you're moving through an environment. Um, so all of the accessibility guidelines as they're currently written are just going to be useless in that environment. Only things that happen in real time.
I want to make sure these folks know they can jump up and ask a question too.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get that for folks who have low vision, and I get the audio piece. It's great for a lot of people, deaf and hard of hearing.
Well,
Yes, and it's not one thing is going to fix everything.
no,
It's
but
going to fix.
deaf and hard of hearing will be, this will be a big boon for them too, because it will caption in real time. And all of this is going to be um, enabled through AI, um, because we're going to need to have a, smarter software that can, if it's going to be processing these things in real time. And so if you're deaf and hard of hearing, and you're at a lecture, let's say a live lecture with a live person, like what we're doing right here, your glasses will, your microphone will pick up my voice and it will caption it for you right in your glasses. Now, once again, traditional captions don't work there, right? Because those are added after the fact. Captioning is going to have to be done in real time. So all of the guidelines currently by WCAG and an accessibility world are just going to be null and void when we're trying to do these things in real time.
Tricky story. Deaf people do not necessarily read.
Well, that's true. Illiteracy is high.
It's not illiteracy. They can't hear the sounds of the words to learn the words phonetically the way we learn words, right? So it isn't that they're not literate people. They just aren't able to learn necessarily. Some low hearing is different. Deaf is deaf, right? So again, cool. And what else?
Yeah, well, the schools for the blind and schools for the deaf are notoriously underachieving. And there's a lot of statistics that point out that when uh, blind and deaf students can go to mainstream K-12 classrooms and can be accommodated, that they do a lot better. They learn a lot more. So one of the things that universal design can do is help to facilitate that as well. I don't know why those specialized schools are low performing. Um, I've just seen the statistics in some articles about it, and that the goal of many deaf and blind young people is to try to get into uh, mainstreamed into regular schools because the outcomes are better for them, um, generally speaking. So anyway, let's get into. I'm going to share my screen. Let's get into Google Sites. I have this. I have this website here. Um, did that work? Are you all seeing this screen? And it says like dog intelligence example here at the upper left. Hello? Yeah, you're seeing it? Okay. Yeah, okay, gotcha. All right. So this is I actually did a way back in 2022, I did a presentation at a conference called Digicon on, which is a learning technology conference on Google Sites. And so this is a website that I built um, in sort of real time to demonstrate how that can work. So before I do anything else, what I'm going to do is analyze this one that I made. So I'm going to go over here um, and I'm going to view the published site. So it looks like this. It's just a silly little website about it's only a couple pages. It's just kind of a demo thing. Um, so this is called the Wave Checker. It's free. I think you all may have been using it. And I can click this on and it will tell me quite a few things about this little website that I built. It says it has 0 errors, but it says it has 6 contrast errors. So contrast for text should be 4.5 to 1 minimum. And for graphical symbols is 3 to 1, uh, are the AA standards. So all these checkers are not 100% accurate. They'll sometimes lie to you. I go over here to details. It's going to tell me that there's errors. And the reason that, like, say, for instance, it's giving me errors here is because the checker is not able to see the color for this footer. It thinks it's white. So in a situation like that, what I can do is get a contrast checker like this right here. Um, and I can choose the white. I can choose this. And you can see it's actually 10 to 1. There's plenty of contrast there. So if it does give you an error, and you think maybe it's wrong, you can do a quick check yourself. So you always have to be aware that these are not always correct. Um, I've got features. Um, these are like good things, like, oh, way to go, you did this. And these are some alt text. These alerts are things that might be problems, it thinks, and it's a redundant link. Now, redundant links are just like not recommended. They're not really errors. Um, it helps to understand how blind persons navigate through media. And what they use is all the screen readers have something in them called a rotor. And a rotor allows them to choose how they want to navigate through a site. Um, the default is it will just read through it serially, just from top to bottom. If you want to see what that's going to look like, we can turn off the styles. And this is kind of what a blind person, quote, sees. It's what they hear. Um, and so you can see kind of what the screen reader will be reading. And there's an image. We call this the semantic web. Um, and as you can imagine, that's quite a lot of reading to go through this serially, just from top to bottom. I'm just going to read all these area tags and then finally get down here to a menu. I mean, it's not a no blind person would do that to a website. 90% of the time, they're going to set the rotor to navigate by the heading structure. And this is what this is telling us right here, what the heading structure is. So you have, so they will be able to go to heading level 1, then heading level 2, level 3. And then if they think there's something interesting in heading level 1, they'll click a button and then there will be maybe some subheadings. And then they'll go through the subheadings. And if there's something they're looking for interesting to them in a subheading, then they'll click another key and then they'll get to the text, to the sort of the heart of the information in that heading. So using proper use of headings is critical. And that's the other way that the second most popular way they would navigate a website is using using links. It will just go through and search the links, and that's why links have to be written descriptively, so that just the name of the link itself is self-explanatory where that link would take us. And the reason that redundant links, to circle all the way back to the beginning of that little conversation, it's annoying if you're using a screen reader and you're looking for links and you have redundant ones. It's just kind of annoying to have to hear them 2 or 3 times. But sometimes in a website, there's a good reason to have a redundant link. And as long as, I think, in my opinion, you don't have a bunch of them on a page, you'll be okay. So that's a judgment call. So we can turn the styles back on now. You can see what it looks like. So you'll see that this title right here is a header 1. You can have more than one H1 on a page. Most web designers would call this an H1. In Google Sites, when you choose the style, they call it a title. But underneath H1, you have the H2. They call that a header. So you'd have a header and a header, and then maybe a third header. So I would navigate, if I was blind, through these headers. I get to this header, and maybe I'm interested in this. And so then I might, that should be an H2. I'm not sure. Hang on a second. Why that's saying H3. But anyway, it would be the next low number. Oh no, it's H2. Yeah, H3. That makes sense. So there might be 4 or 5 H3s it could go through. So the bottom line is you don't want to. I see this all the time where designers will use the heading style guides for strictly style, just to get the text size that they think looks good on the page. That's a big mistake for accessibility. You want to make sure you're doing H1s, and then under H1s are H2s, none are H2s or H3s, so that it structurally makes sense, as it shows over here. Okay. Um, any questions about that stuff? Let's see what, oh, here's structure. So you can see we have the banner, the header, the navigation. Here's the H1, H2's underneath the H1, and then here's the H3 under an H2. So you can kind of double check that. So this is the site structure. So your contrast readings. Now, if you do have a text that's giving you low contrast, now this is a false reading, right? Because it thinks the background is white, but it does allow you to experiment here and make color changes until you get the passing gray down here. So we're generally required for double A. There's triple A is sometimes used for um, like tests, online tests that are required for certification. Let's say for getting a passing the law bar, things like that. Things are actually absolutely critical. Sometimes there will be a triple A designation, and you can choose.
What's a double A? We missed that. We were asking that.
Well, double A is so these are based on the WCAG, WCAG standards that are put forward by the W3C organization. And the Title II laws part of the ADA requires WCAG double A standards. There's single A, double A, and triple A. So 99.99% of the time, if you're working in accessibility, you'll be required to meet the double A standard. That's why that's here. So anyway, this can help you to kind of adjust your colors right here, and you can get the hex value. I think that's pretty much how this works. I can turn that off now. So that's a really handy tool. There's other ones too, but I kind of think this is the most popular one, because I think it's just really well made. Let's see. Still have that. Okay. So the important thing with web pages is that text is what we call live text. It's actually like I can type in it here. It's not an image. Okay. It has to be typed in. And typesetting in web design is not sophisticated. I mean, you really because these things are fluid, you're really dependent on word wrapping. So if we go to test here, you can see that as this gets squeezed, this website responds. And only live text can respond like this in reword wrap. Image text can't. You can see there's image text here. It just will keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which means that it would have to be quite large here in order to be, readable on a phone. The other thing about live text is screen readers can read that text. Screen readers can't read text in an image. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is images need to have image tags uh, for blind folks. And there's, I think, now this is my opinion, but I've done a fair amount of testing with the blind organization actually there in Grand Rapids. And actual blind and sight impaired people have a very different opinion than the design community in terms of alt tags. Alt tags are an interruption in the flow when they're using a screen reader. because as they're reading along through the text, they get to an image, and then there's an alt tag, and then there's a description of the image. 9 times out of 10, the image is really decorative. It's not bringing any actual meaningful information to the blind person. And that's just annoying, right? Um, and so Google recognizes that. And when it asks you to do alt text, it has a little check marks. This is a decorative image. That way, the screen reader will just skip it. The other thing you can do if you're working in another site builder and they don't have that option, which most of them don't, you can just do double quotes. That's, if you know one little line of code, that's a good one. That's just null, right? So the screen reader will skip that. Double quotes. I will put in double quotes on almost every single image that I put on a website because almost every single image is decorative. Unless it's a diagram or something that is bringing information that is not included in the text and that you need in order to have the information make sense. In other words, in order part of the information is in the image and part of the information is in the text. And that only when those two are um, experienced together will the whole thing make sense. So two pieces to make sense of one thing. A better way to do it is if you have an image that is adding critical content, to try to just describe that image organically within the paragraph, within the text. You see, in the same way that I use the dog example. Sometimes I get down on my knees and look into my dog's eyes. We just add that organically. And then again, you don't need an alt tag for the image. And that's a better experience. So none of these images on here are really adding any information that's can't be had through the text. They're just there for our entertainment. So I'm sure that's quite a bit different from what you've heard about alt tags. You've probably maybe been told, well, you got to put an alt tag on every single thing and describe every single image. And that is the problem with the accessibility environment right now. It's a list of guidelines, and designers look at that list as a list of tasks. If I just do these tasks and I'm compliant, I'm done. Whereas, as Gail said earlier, and her and I are on the same page, and she's spot on. We should have higher goals than that. Our goal should be, yes, we should be compliant, but we should also think about creating the best quality of experience as we can for the widest range of people that we can. So let me, so any questions right now? I can pause here for a minute. Good. Okay. And are you all trying to build a Google site right now? Is that what's happening? Or yeah. Um,
So I've shared that link with you a couple of times and you gave me some advice on
mm.
part of it, which I fixed. Be able
Oh,
to share again.
I did. Can you put that in the chat?
I don't know.
I
I'm just
did you
gonna
when did all that happen?
hold on. Earlier emails, it's been back and forth. Just a minute.
Oh, I thought I was not able to see it.
Hold the phone. Correct. You told me I needed to publish it. I
Oh,
did.
okay.
It's, I hope, fixed. Stand by.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Really trying to keep the groove on here. Stand by.
Yeah.
Chats. See if that flies for you.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
fingers are crossed.
So I've got Google Drive. Um, hang on a sec.
I don't know what.
It should be the URL of the website itself.
It is. What did I put in the chat, Bill?
It says it's a Google Drive link,
Correct. It's a Google site.
but there's a link for the site itself. It's not
This is
like a,
why you're here.
yeah.
I'm pulling it off of the, I don't know. What do you want me to do?
I'll show you. Look, so this is a site. So what you do is you push that publish button.
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Now I'm not seeing you. Just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. So once you publish it,
Yeah,
it'll look like this. And then you
yeah,
can say publish.
yeah.
And then you can go to view publish site.
Okay, I've done that. Where's
Okay.
the link?
The
One.
link's right here, just in
That's what I sent you in the chat.
the chat. Um,
https://drive.google.com. Is that not a link?
no, it should say sites.google.com. View should be from here. You want to copy it right out of the URL
I
box
did
here.
copy it. I'll give you a different one.
That's weird.
I'll give you a different one.
Okay.
Try that one.
That looks like it.
Okay.
Okay, so now what you
People
need,
need a
so
tidier one so they
so
can
that
see
is, well, that
instead of that
is
box.
that
What?
is to the editor. So in order for me to, this is good. In order for me to edit it, I'm going to request access and you just give me access, okay? This should send an email to, if you're the administrator of this administrator of the site, this should send an email to you.
I clicked share. Is that working?
Let's try it again. Yeah, that's it. All right, we're in business. Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. So, all right. And got some links up here. Okay, cool. Okay, so let me dissect this a little bit. The first thing that I would say is I think it's almost never a good idea to put text over an image like this. Um, you can see that would be difficult for somebody with sight impairment to read. Um, Even if you meet the requirement, um, as we move along here for contrast, which might be a little bit iffy in some of these areas, that's that's a lot to kind of have to process that all those different contrast changes behind that large text. Um, I generally recommend just moving it down to here to see, and then maybe you could do something like that. And that's going to be a lot more readable. And once you do that, then you can take the shading, off of that image if you want, and let that, and you can put something in here that can do a lot more work for you in terms of branding, um, or just decoration, or trying to bring some emotion to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dimmed image that way. So very rarely does this work well. There's a condition that many people have, and we all have to a certain degree, called scotopic sensitivity. And that's when you have fairly high contrast images that are could also be patterned or very complex. And then those letters in that case will start to vibrate a little bit. It's often confused with dyslexia, and it's about 15% of the population um, has this. And we can, and I think I'm one of those people. I can I can make it stop vibrating, but I have to really like work at it, and it's exhausting after a while and tiring to have to do that.
Just a quick to say, you can make those changes and leave them. You don't have to put it back the way you found it.
I don't have to put it back. All right. Um, okay, so yeah, I might do something like that. Um, and then of course you would have to test the contrast there against that blue. Over here, uh, in themes, which theme is this? Is it impression? Yeah, it's impression. You can change this color if you need to make it a little bit darker. You can pull it down here so you can play with those. Okay. Um, and then you might want to have that one be that. Oh, that should have. So what happened here is I think somebody went in and made that white. Uh, Here we go. So you'd probably want that to be like a really dark gray or a black. So the other thing that happens with persons with scotopic sensitivity is even just pure black text on a pure white background will make the text vibrate for them. So if I'm working on the white and the light gray areas, I will usually choose, this second one. It will still meet the 4.5 to 1 easily and by far, but it will be a little bit gentler for people with scotopic sensitivity syndrome. Um, okay. We usually don't want text to go all the way across the page. I think the maximum would be you'd want to have two margins on the right there. Makes it a little bit easier to read. And then if you want to maybe center that, that's usually good graphic design practice. Um, okay, let's publish this. And actually, it's kind of annoying to have these two come up all the time. I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. You go to publish settings. Here they are. You can uncheck that editors must review box. And then should not do that. Yeah, just publish it. View the publish site. All right, let's check it out. Let's activate our wave checker and 18 errors. That's quite a few. Um, let's see what they are. So we have missing alt text. Okay. So these images don't have alt text in them. So we'll look at that. Looks like that's most of them. You have some contrast errors. Some of these may be like these are probably not really. Um, it's probably just not recognizing the page color. So we'll take a look at those. Um, let's see what your structure looks like. H1. So it's like you skipped to H3 here. These should be H2s. You probably did that, like most people do, in order to get a certain size text that you thought looked good on the page. And I'll show you how to remedy that as well, how to get to H2 and still get the same size text that you would prefer to have. Okay, so let's go out of this, go back here, and we'll address the image tags first. Alt text, so that's missing. So the question now then is, um, for a sight impaired person, do we need to describe what Kyle Austin looks like for them? Does anybody have an opinion on that? I don't know if anyone's talking, but I can't hear them. I'm sorry.
What's best best practices. I would think that you'd want to know he's a white male, middle aged or young, I don't know what you call him, in a suit and tie,
Um,
smiling
maybe.
outside
If I'm
the
blind,
woods.
do I care about any of that?
Well,
Does it
if you're
matter
looking
to me?
for a diverse group of people speaking with us, it ain't that diverse, is it?
No, no. I mean,
So
it's
somebody call us out on that really fast.
yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, so these are judgment calls for sure. I think Gail brought up a really good point there. Do we want to, if we have a, do we want the blind people to understand what level of diversity we have here? Now, you could handle that in the text. You could say we have a diverse um, set of speakers coming at this event. And then we could say African American Kyle Austin. Uh, of course, he's not, but you see what I mean? And so we could work all that right in the text, I think, if we wanted to make that point. I think there's usually a way to just do that within the text without having to fall back on image descriptions. Um, so I would probably uh, put whatever I felt was important about how Kyle looks. I would try to work it right into the text here and not do an alt description. So these, I think, in my opinion, would just be decorative. Okay. Now I see designers putting alt text on logos and writing like, you know, 50 word descriptions of the logo on a website. I remember one of the very first tests I did with the Association for the Blind. they were they were angry about that. They're like, I don't care what your logo looks like. It makes zero difference to me. You just got to stop doing that. So, yeah, Gail's point's well taken, but I do think there's a way to do that more organically without using the the image alt tags. But if you have to at least go in here and check this box if you're not going to write a description for every image, and that will take care of most of your errors right there. Okay. Now let's look at your headings. So that's a
So just tell
title.
them to go ahead and do that because some of them are doing this with you.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Cool.
so
Yeah. So this is a title. It's an H1. That's good. Uh, this is normal text. That should be a heading. Okay. That's an H2. Now, if you don't want that size, you can you can still go in here. You can change the font if you want. Say Open Sans, semi-bold. You could make it smaller, you know. Oops, that's too small. And I'm not suggesting, I'm just doing this pretty randomly. That is still a heading, you see. So you can style it after the fact. What you don't want to do, I'm going to do some undos here. Get it back. So that's regular heading. That's the default with the, I do like this template. That's my favorite template. Um, I like compressed fonts because you can squeeze more stuff in. So yeah, it's still a heading, but what you don't want to do is say to yourself, "Oh, gee, that's too big. I wish it was smaller. I like that better." Because then what it does is it skips. It goes from H1 to H3. So that's H2, right? That's H3. So you got to do these in order. Okay. This should be a heading. Uh, that should probably be a heading. Yeah. And then this is one you might want to style. I noticed that this was smaller. So maybe that's 14, maybe that's Open Sands. And then over here, maybe you just leave it like that. Um, this,
Can I ask a quick question? Can I ask a question while you're there?
yeah.
So with each of these speakers, it's been recorded, there's been a video, there's been documentation. Could we eventually, when we have it ready, can we click on Laurel's face box, whatever you want to call that thing, and take
Mhm.
it to the resources that she delivered somehow?
Yeah,
Can
you
you?
don't want to put links on images, um,
Okay.
because you would have to go in the image tag, and it
Put
just
the
doesn't.
link on the words,
Yeah,
Laurel
you want to put
Stanley.
it here. So I would put the link, I would say Laurel Stanley. I would put the link on this whole thing. So I would put it here. I don't know. I'll just put a link to my website here. And so it's going to look like that. Um, Now you can put it on just the name, but really, if you think about it, um, if I'm using the rotor and I'm searching for these people by searching through links alone, um, when I get to Laurel Stanley, it might be helpful for me to know that she's works in UI UX for Abercrombie and Fitch, right? That might be information that. So you have to ask yourself what information is important for somebody to decide whether to or not to check that link. I remember Laurel. I had Laurel for a student many years ago. Um, she's had a very illustrious career for sure, and I'm taking full credit for that. Not really. I see Tim's here. I remember Tim. Anyways, so yeah, links are important, and that's a decision, so just going by guidelines, uh, and thinking of these as just tasks to check off, is not a great strategy. You're not going to make the best experience that way. There's questions to ask ourselves. How much information needs to go in the link, um, and into the link text. Okay. Um, this right here, I'm not sure, I guess, from a navigation. So it seems to me like, so these are people that are showing up in the calendar. I see.
So the
So,
ones below the calendar have already spoken. The ones above the calendar are yet to speak. So
okay.
meeting attractions are on top, and
Yeah.
then the documentation of what
Yeah.
happened is
So
below.
whatever, yeah. So these would be, you might I might put a subheading here, and I might call that past speakers or something like that. So that I'm identifying um, who these people are. Now that's going to help everybody, right? Not just a blind person. Um,
Indeed.
so yeah, and so past speakers, and so somebody with a rotor would land on schedule your time on this calendar, and then underneath that could be past speakers, and then what are these here?
So those are other, I guess, pages in the website that take them to resources. The only good examples is a work in progress. It's not very much done on that.
So these are, we could call these, just for now, we could call these resources, additional resources or something.
Right.
You guys can figure out what exactly to call those later. So that would be a heading then, because that's a whole new section, right? That doesn't really have anything to do with this. So you can see how that
There's also
works.
buttons at the top that align with those three spots.
These right here.
Yeah, look at the top all the way. Keep going.
Oh, I'm going all the way to the top.
Keep going. Keep going. buttons at the top, home, elegant examples, resources, research. So maybe that needs to be adjusted too. I don't know.
Well, now you might have some redundant links, but that might be an okay place to have redundant links because if I'm down here on the page, um, that makes the most sense where to have the links, right? Because I'm probably um, not only for blind people, but for everyone. I mean, I otherwise what you're doing is say additional resources, and you would have to write down here, um, click the link at the top of page in the main menu, right? That doesn't make any sense. But if somebody comes back to this page later, right, and they want to find those additional resources, we should give them a shortcut. You know, we should we should not make them scroll all the way down the page and find it. So yeah, we're going to add a little bit of an annoyance for a blind person using a rotor, but it's not much of an annoyance. I think there's always trade-offs inside, right? Especially when we're trying to accommodate, so many different kinds of people.
Can I ask you to go back up to the top buttons?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed the drop down, one of the choices is a lexicon. Can you click on that? Because I think we could use an assist on this spot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What we're trying to do is build the vocabulary, the library of vocab that is kind of specific to this conversation. Maybe it overlaps, but we're trying to visually and with words and with links get people to understand varieties of language.
Mm-hmm. And so, what specific ways are you feel like you're struggling with this?
Okay, personal opinion, and you guys please weigh in. I think it doesn't feel organized very well. It looks a little clunky. Also, one
Mm,
page down a minute. For example, designing to the edges is an interesting thing. The black image is mismatch, which is a fascinating conversation.
you're talking
For
about like
example,
in terms of height.
so that's Kat Holmes's work. She's with was with
Hmm.
Microsoft, so that's important work. And
Yeah,
it should take people to their website at um, Microsoft, but also the images present personas that are maybe uh, understood. But
right.
also, so the imagery is, again, it's not only for folks who have low or no vision, it's for all of us. So
Yeah.
the
So
image does add value, for example, gaming. So Tim Murphy has a very cool product that he has on the market for gamers who are deaf and hard of hearing. Now, I'm not a gamer, but I guess when you
yeah,
hear
with the
gunshots,
lights. Yeah, I'm
with the
familiar with
light.
that. Yeah, it's cool.
So that is the reason for speaking to, gamers come
Hmm.
in all packs, right? They're not all the same. Um, and then the design to the edges is a point that there's no average, right? There's a lot of research on that. So we focus on, hey, we can't
Yeah.
design to average.
What
Research
is
has to be,
typical? We call it typical sometimes.
we do, and it's not. So designing to the edges, that's Mr. Rose. So it's just all ziggy zaggy. It's not organized
Yeah.
well. There's not
Well,
policy structure.
yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. So let me address this first. So we have icons here. Um, Now, as a designer, first of all, if you want to link, um, you could do something like learn more about um, mismatch by whoever this person is, Jane Doe, right? Uh, Boy, you've seen how poor of a typer I am. Okay, so you could put that in there. You can make that a link, right? Just make that a link. And so then if you want, that's how you handle like going and learning more about this diagram and this person who made this diagram. Um, if you feel like this website right here is a place where you want um, to talk about these individual icons, um, I would suggest you just do it right here in the body copy, not in an alt tag. So you would write something like, here are the icons um, created by so and so for this reason, right? Spell it right out. And then you could do a bullet list and you could say um, the icon with uh, one shoe or a boot with a foot boot. I'm not sure what that is. Denotes, such and such, and just list them. Now, what that does, that's good. That's a good universal design thing because now for people that are typically sensed, quote, um, I mean, I don't know what these icons mean exactly, even when I'm seeing them. So you're helping me out there. You're helping me understand what they are. And then if I can't see, you're organically describing the important elements in this important image for the full understanding of this part of the
So the
website.
cool, yeah, so the cool factor is Valaria just jumped on the one she popped in there, and that is an image, and the text is in the image, so no one can read that text.
Talking about this
So
one here,
correct. And so
right?
I'm guessing you're gonna tell Valaria, hey, put in a text box that in
Yes.
type what it says there. If it's okay, sorry, she had it lit. That's all I'm looking at. Shin, my bad. Shin's gonna need to go in and retype, but if those
Yeah.
words are meaningful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
probably a link to Tim's website. Maybe it's an image of Tim's work. I don't know.
Yeah.
However,
I mean, you might even just take this image and crop it. If you don't really need that text, and then just put the text underneath it, so that
you
it's
didn't
not
hear me.
redundant.
Yeah, you didn't hear me say to everybody, hey, whichever one you were working on, jump on now
Hmm.
and do what Bill says.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about organizing it a little bit better. So we have, let me dissect this here for a second. So we have inclusive design. So this should be your title. That's the title for the whole page, I believe, isn't it?
Probably.
Um, and I'm gonna, and so title text, header text, subheader text, more often than not, like 90% of the time at least, it should be consistent so that as I'm navigating a page, um, I'm being trained by the website to understand on site what a header is, what a subheader is, what a title is. There are exceptions. You always have to imagine there's exceptions. Um, but for the most part, you probably want to do that. You want to probably be consistent. So if you are doing like a gray box here underneath the title, you probably want to be consistent about that. And so now already we got a little bit better organization because this has been sectioned off, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then what I like to do, I use these spacers. In a lot of website builders, you could control margins. This is a pretty straightforward website builder, so you don't really have control over margins, but what you can do is put in these spacers. And these spacers will be ignored by screen readers. So if I want a little extra space between this and what comes next, I'll put a spacer in there and give it the same color. And then if I want to have a little more margin here, I'll put a spacer in underneath that one. I like to squeeze them up, make them a little bit smaller. And then that's a white spacer. And so now you'll see um, you're getting some nice margins between the information. That can go a long way, really, to sectioning. This
What about
section,
the vertical part?
Well, these margins are just set. What you can do if you want more margin, you just go like this, right? Like maybe this belongs to that, and then you want to have a margin, and this belongs to that. And then when when it, and you always have to check it for responsive to see how it's wrapping. Or you can just do that, and you can see that you'll have a nice margin here. This looks like it probably belongs to that. So you can kind of see how the margins help you with your mobile version too. See how this stuff is all like, I'm not sure where one thing ends and the other begins. And so that's what margins can do, those
Distinguish
horizontal margins. Yeah.
vertical.
Yeah. So a lot of yeah, so you can do a lot of organizing with margins. Um, Also, I think that this section, um,
Each of those words, the lexicon, ability bias, for example, should
yeah.
ability bias be a header type and
Well,
then
that's what I was
body?
just wondering. So,
Yeah.
probably, and so the way that would have to work is this would have to have a return, and this would be a heading. Okay. Because if I do this and make it a heading, it's going to make the whole thing a heading, you see. So that's why you
Okay.
have to have the return in there. Yeah, I would make those headings. Um,
And how do you choose heading over subheading?
well, yeah, that's a good question. So you just subheadings is just in the row,
Okay.
title heading, subheading. Small
And we can make,
text, I don't really use.
and then, but we can make that word ability bias a different font size.
Yeah, if you want to make that a little smaller,
Correct.
you could do it. Um, but then you're going to want to, oh, I'm in the wrong. I don't know what happened there. Hang on. I don't know why it's not taking. Maybe because we're all working on it at the same time. Anyway, it's not letting me do it. But if you turn this to 24, say, then you want to make them all the same, right? That's all. If you change one, change them all. So you have consistency. Um,
And also, you have advised me don't mess with the font style, right?
well,
Sans sans
you
serif.
can change that over here in the theme font style. But also they have a more sophisticated um custom theme thing that you may or may not want to mess
Go back
with.
up and highlight ability bias one more time for me. And
Mhm.
maybe we'll say this differently.
Right here.
So Oswald is what's selected for ability bias.
Yeah. Yeah, you could change it.
Size, speed. But you've
Mhm.
given clear advice about sans serif, no serif.
Well,
The thickness of the letter matters. So some of those
yeah.
fonts are super thin. Um,
Well, those are design choices. There are people who are claiming to have fonts that work better for folks with dyslexia, but those all those claims, every single one of them have proven to be false. There is research where these claims have been tested. There is not really any such thing as a dyslexic font. There's a little bit of thin evidence that um,
well,
sans
most of
serif
it's
is better.
readability. Yeah, readability.
Yeah,
So you all can decide what is going to be your standard, and all of them need to be the same, right?
yeah.
So
So it depends on how much, that becomes a style choice, and then we have visual hierarchy, right? Like you can you can you can achieve visual hierarchy with bold and have a smaller font, right? Probably not that small. Or you can achieve visual hierarchy with a not bolded font, but you make it bigger. And then it just becomes like about the rhythm of the page and the style. And now we're into aesthetics, really, I think. Um,
good.
I
So
kind
it's good
of,
for them to understand where they have wiggle room on the
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I like them. I think the narrow font on the headings with this theme are nice. They're smart because you get less word wrapping, and and word wrapping causes complexity, to the page layout. Um,
Who's working on the word average? Okay, perfect.
so these are all, every single one of these are part of inclusive design, aspiring to provide equal equity of access to the basic needs of all, for all. Right? There's no, and these are the sub things,
Right.
right? I would, if it was me, and I don't think we want to do this right here and now, but I think you could probably take all the information on this page and break it into two or three sub categories.
Well, I
Um,
imagine that look like a dictionary. It's going to get more and more robust as we
yeah.
go.
So down here we have things like intersectionality, medical model uncertainty, cultural competence.
Those are
Um,
four different things.
yes, but could those be categorized under, can you imagine a category name that could encompass all of those and then create a section, either a separate page or a separate kind of section on this page, just
I would
so that it's,
guess everything's alphabetical, like a dictionary. I mean, it's kind of a dictionary, right? It's focused on one specific conversation.
well, A becomes before D. This is really
I
alphabetical.
understand that it isn't. It's a
Yeah.
work in progress. My question is that a structure, alphabetical?
Oh, well, I mean, I think that if you were to create a directory, um,
It's a dictionary. Most
yeah,
dictionaries are alphabetical.
I see what you're saying. It's a dictionary. Okay.
Fancy word for dictionary, left
Right.
field. Main
So
focus on specific content.
dictionaries and directories are very similar. So if I was going to do it that way, I would probably do it like this. I would probably make a row for every single one of these. Okay. So that we can go down, so that we can use the convention that we're used to with dictionaries, which is top to bottom, left to right, uh, kind of a row structure. Okay. And then what I would probably do, yeah, I would do it like this. So every one of
Not
these has a
and not two
row.
columns like a newspaper. Skip the columns like a newspaper. Just do the row.
I would, yeah, I would do it like this because if
Yep.
if you want it to be that way, and then what you can do, this is kind of a neat trick. If you want to have an index just on this page, you can insert a table of contents. Okay. And you could do something. Sometimes I'll tuck them in over here and to put that there. Um, Now this uh, you don't want to see, so you can turn it off. You can turn any of these off. And now when we test it like this, what we have is a table of contents over here. And if I click this, it will take me down to that. So any place you have a header, it will show up here. And this will allow us to navigate. I actually have to, in order to test that, I have to publish it and go to the publish site. And now if I click inclusion, it takes me to that. And the other nice thing that Google Sites does is it gives you a link for every heading. So if you want to send this somebody in an email, you want to send them right to that part of this page, you can send them that link in your email and it'll take them right to it. Um, Almost no web builder, other web builders have that. That's a really nice feature. These sites are set up for teachers, for education, really. So they have some nice features. So if I had a uh, um, a dictionary and it's quite long, right? It could end up being quite long because each one of these is going to get their own row. It's going to be a very linear experience, top to bottom. Then this directory could really come in handy because then I could skip right down to whatever I'm looking for.
How does that directory, when you click on disability, how does it know that it's going to drag to disability?
Because what it does is it looks for headings. So any place you have a heading,
Okay.
that heading will show up in the directory.
So if you added a new heading,
Yeah. If I add a new one, it'll just show up there. Yeah. So if I make this a heading,
that's what I'm talking about.
yeah, let's try that. Um, Now it should, yeah, it just
Right.
showed up, put it right in there. So when I have a long page with a lot of information on it, that is kind of like a library or a dictionary or a directory of information, I will usually make it very linear, top to bottom, because that's a convention. That's our book convention, right? We're still used to that. And then have a directory there. So these
How come they're not lining up exactly the same?
this accessibility one might be a subheading,
Okay,
you see.
gotcha.
No, it's a heading. I don't know. Sometimes it does that, and it's a little bit annoying. Um, it, it might be because it's center just. I don't know. You have to play with it. It might not look that way on the published site. Let's see. No, it does. Maybe this one is a title,
Oh,
multi-dimension. Where's that? That's a heading. Yeah, I'm not sure. Um, oh, there, now it's
what
fixed.
just happened?
I think somebody's just changed those probably from titles to headings. Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing the right thing. They're working with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
that
got
looks
that.
that looks great.
Okay, that
Um,
helps. Grab one of the other buttons at the top, like
yeah.
resources. That structure too.
Now there
That way,
is another thing that you can do um, that I sometimes do, and that is I'll alternate uh, styles. It can get a little stripy doing that. Oops, that's white. Uh, I guess this is, yeah,
it's not stacked yet, so
yeah,
it should.
yeah. So you can do something like that, and then kind of like what we do with Excel docs sometimes, where we'll just do that, and that helps to differentiate a little bit.
Yep.
It can get a little bit stripy looking, and then to make it less stripy looking, what you can do is use these spacers. And the reason I do spacers instead of returns is screen readers will read as Gail knows, will say return, return, and that's annoying, but this won't read
It
the
does.
spacer. And so if you want to add a little extra margins, you can just throw these spacers in, and then that will uh I like that. Margins are good, chunking information into sections and making sure those sections feel like sections with big healthy margins. See how nice that is?
Yep, starting to feel nicer.
Yeah.
I
And
can imagine
so,
though that line of bullet pointed jump two words is going to get super long, and that's going to be a super big. I mean, that's going to be four
well,
at least.
yeah, and then you get into asking yourself, do I need this dictionary to be broken up into sections? So you might have A to D and then C to
There you
F and that sort of thing, so the pages don't get too long. The other thing you can do, you can kind of hack these directories a little bit. I'll put this here and I can put in another directory next to this one. Or table of contents. Scooch this over here, bring it down. And now I have two of them. So what I could do is take the bottom half of these and turn them off. See, like this. And take the top half of these and turn them off. And then I don't have to scroll through the directory so far.
Huh.
Wait.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, turn these off. And these oh, it's doing it on both of them. I guess I can't do that. I thought I remember doing that at one time, but it's not letting me. It's
Oh, yeah.
so never mind. Yeah, I could have swore I did that once, but uh,
Maybe it wasn't a
apparently,
copy paste.
apparently not. Well, I did put a new directory in. I didn't copy and paste because I thought that it might not work. Anyway, never mind. I think probably if your page is getting too long, you just need to divide it up into more pages. That's going to be your solution there.
Can you run up to, I'm watching your time and we had an agreement for an hour and now you're close to an hour
Oh,
and a half. So,
I'm fine. I don't have to be
okay.
anywhere this morning.
Because
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. I think we have attention
Yeah, me
span.
too.
I,
This is fun for me.
okay. Can you run up to the resources tab?
Uh-huh.
So this is, yeah, videos. Run up.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is a little, it's getting better. Students have been
Mhm.
making it a lot better, but maybe there's ways to make it look
Okay,
even better.
so that's a heading. Um, and so these are images, not videos. Are they going to be videos at some point?
Click here to watch. It should be hot.
Oh, okay.
Hot.
Right. Okay, so here's what. So is this going to be like a description?
So probably you should write Crip Camp the documentary, right? Because they can't read the image.
Yeah. Let me think about this for one moment here.
And then
I think you don't
Chris
need this
Downey.
at all. I think you just do this. I think right here you just type um
Oh,
click here. Yeah, I would just probably write like watch prep camp,
Crip Camp. Yeah. Okay.
right? And then you're done, I think. Crip Camp's a really cool film. I love that film.
They did watch it. And
Yeah.
then the other one is click here to text.
Yeah, so I don't think you need this top box at all. Like I don't think that's needed. And then you just write, watch, whatever the name of this was. Just do them like this.
Okay.
And so then if I'm using a rotor and I go to guest speaker and I click through the rotor, it's just going to say watch Crip Camp or watch this movie or watch Steelcase. And it's going to be a very streamlined experience for me. And I might put in here guest speaker uh videos. Right? So I know, oh, this is a
It'll
section
pop
of
up more.
videos. Yeah. Um, so
So
yeah,
this
that'll
is
streamline that pretty well.
outside resource. Chris Downey's really, the other ones are placeholder holders.
Yeah, I
And
see
those,
that. Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys watch this as a class or anything? Or should sign that as
I,
homework. That is
oh,
so, yeah, that is so informative. Yeah.
it's amazing.
Okay. So these are outside resources. So resources is a kind of a open-ended term.
Hmm.
If they all happen to all be one type of resource, like the videos, it's helpful to put that type in there if you can.
And
And
that's just normal text. It doesn't say the right heading.
all right, yeah, that should be a heading. Yeah.
And it's not, is it heading one, heading two? Does that matter? Are we
Well,
changing that?
heading is so title is H1, heading is H2, subheading is H3. That's the
The
way.
subheading's not even clickable, so it's not a subheading until it's under the header.
No, you
You
could
can't
make
say
this. You
that.
could no, you could skip. You could skip. You don't want to skip, but it'll let you.
Oh,
But you
all
shouldn't.
right.
And in fact, you could make this a title. Like if you're gonna have a section that has an H1, an H2, and an H3, so then you could make that a title, and underneath that you could have a, a heading, and underneath that you could have a subtitle if you have that complex of a structure. But generally speaking, usually two levels is enough, and then we could reserve title for this, you know. And actually, when you put there are some cases where you can put text over an image where it works. This I think works fine because that image is so dark, you know, every part of it is dark. It's not overly complex. So again, it's a judgment call.
Yeah, that image just came with it.
Yeah, that's one of the defaults. Yeah. Yeah. Um,
So
what
the other
else?
one, the other tab is mostly visual, elegant responses. Go all the way to the top.
Oh, this one?
Researcher, go to yeah, elegant examples. Do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is where I'm asking students to notice things visually
Hmm.
interesting. Either it's a work in progress or a thing that they noticed that speaks to inclusivity in whatever Broadway, right? So um, I'm asking them to put images in there. Those would need alt text.
I think these are a case where all text would be okay, but you could also just write the description under here.
Okay, and I like
And
the
that's a little more organic
organic approach. Thank
because
you.
what I might want to say is something like this
Well,
playful corner in Grand Rapids uses you know, highly saturated rainbow of color and whimsical clouds to give a family friendly, you know, feel to the downtown area. Right. And
and
so that
on the
is,
physical bench you can play.
yeah. And
You know,
so that's describing the image. Plus it's telling everybody why you think this corner looks the way it does. You're adding context to it and you're describing the image all at the same time. And then you don't need an alt tag. For me, the more I work on accessible design, the less I think alt tags are actually useful. And that it's much better to just put things in organically and in context in the body copy.
anything else that you guys care about? Because you're being super duper unusually quiet. Unusually quiet. So I've been inviting them to build their own websites because
Hmm.
many are. How many have your own websites in progress or otherwise? And how many of you are using this process? Zero. Oh, one. No. You're using Google? Yay, one.
Yeah.
So because it's free.
Yeah,
And
well, and you know, there are other site builders that are free. Wix is free, but a lot of them come with limits into number of pages, or they slap an ad on it. The other thing too is um, when you look at Google Sites, a lot of those other web builders like Wix and Squarespace and stuff, they're not that great at accessibility. You will be able to find like an accessible template sometimes if somebody put out there.
is what
But
we both
even
were.
but there's certain kinds of accessibility that have to be built into the code of the site that you are not allowed to doctor with in any of these site builders. And let me show you an example of that. If we look at we turn the styles off, what you're going to see is these two buttons, which are super important um, for this people using screen readers. Skip to main content, skip to navigation. Because what a screen reader will do is it will read things like the bookmarks. It will read a lot of other stuff before it even gets to the nav. So typically, somebody who's using a screen reader, the skip to the nav button will be there'll be a button on their rotor for that. And if it's not coded in, they won't be able to skip right to the navigation or they won't be able to skip right to the main content. They'll have to listen to it, read all through the navigation or all through like the bookmarks and other things that are in the web browser. So those are critical. A lot of those other websites won't have those two buttons, which are they're just two buttons, but they might be the most two important buttons for persons with vision disabilities. Um, and it writes area text for you. Um, those are um, those are a whole nother ball of wax, but they help they help the rotor distinguish between what is a link, what's an image, what's a heading, and all that sort of thing. Not all those other builders will write these area tags. Um, so the area tags kind of work in the background, informing the rotor how to skip through various ways of navigating. So that is the one thing I like about Google Sites, even though it's limited in a lot of ways in terms of um, design possibilities. Um, if you're creating an informational, educational website, um, and it's important to you for it to be accessible, it does do uh, a great job for that because it was made for this. Google Sites was made for teaching, really. Essentially, that's what it's there for. It's a teaching tool.
Can you show me one more time how to get to the wave part of the reader?
Right. So the wave is it's an extension. It's a Google extension. So you have to just find the extension and then you can turn it on and off. So if you go to manage extensions and you were to check, just search for wave, it should show up, I guess.
And it's doing the color contrast too. I don't need a separate extension for that.
No. Yeah. There are other, I mean, there's a whole um there's a whole color. I've been working with color a lot lately. In fact, I'm going to be releasing my color system this summer at a big international color conference. Um, so color is something also to keep in mind. My favorite, so 4.5% of the population is colorblind. Okay, 1 in 12 men, 1 in 200 women, and there are many, many colorblind artists and designers actually. Um, So colorblindness is a pretty big deal. My favorite colorblind tool is called the Dalton lens,
That's different, but okay, cool.
and I can grab a screen region, and it will. Oh, there's my interface. I think Zoom might be screwing it up a little bit. Um, some of these. Oh, there it is. Okay. So now it made a separate image of this, and what I can do now is I can Daltonize it, which means I can simulate what a colorblind person sees. Okay. So protanope, deuteranope, those are the two most common. Those are red, green, colorblind. This is extremely rare. Extremely, extremely rare. It's yellow, blue, colorblind. And so you can kind of see things. So where this really might come into play, honestly, is if you're using color to differentiate information, like in charts and graphs. But it also has a aesthetic um, thing too. So you're not using pink or green anywhere. Um, so those look pretty good. This red, okay, so we take this right here. Now, this is somebody's logo, so there's probably nothing you can do about that. Um, but just as an example, um, we can grab these and we can say Daltonize them. And you can see that it looks awful, right? That red. Um, for 4.5% of the population. Now, this is deuteranope, it looks better. One's red colorblind and one's green colorblind. I can't remember which one is whichever, but so half of that 4.5% sees this.
Like it when you go to the Google logo itself and show us.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's not great. Um, I did a whole post about that a long time ago. Um, so something to keep in mind when you're working on this image right here will be interesting. Um, I Here's what's going to happen with this. The blue is going to look fine. The purple, the blue, the yellow, green is going to look fine. The only thing that's going to get dull is this red. Um, so let's see how my prediction is. I have a shortcut thing here too, which is color Oracle. So I can do that. It does the whole page. So I think my prediction was pretty accurate. You see how that red turned gray, but these are still saturated. So what I look at is saturation. So if you want to make a colorful experience for persons with color blindness, you have to know which colors are going to turn um, dull brown or gray. Uh, and that's I'll show you how my color system works. This is it right here. Um, so actually, I have a little better way of demoing this. Go to my website. So this is built in Google Sites. I want to go to current projects. So this is the system. And the way it works is, so we'll start with color blindness. So for colorblind folks, every color is going to either turn yellow or blue. So as a designer or as an artist, it's really helpful to know which ones are going to turn blue and which ones are going to turn yellow. So the first thing I did was sorted that. These will all turn blue. These will all turn yellow. Okay, we can see that here. So that's helpful. Also, any color that's going to desaturate or turn gray is left out. Okay, so if we do this, you'll see these pretty much mostly these keep their saturation. Now these are desaturated. These are 50% saturation. These are 100%. There is a couple rows here you'll notice which are a little more desaturated. Those are special rows. So if you want to get something close to magenta and something close to cyan, what I'm saying in my color system is go ahead and use those, but put those like on a black background or put these on a background from one of these colors and don't put it next to don't put this magenta next to this purple because it will make this look dull. So you can use them in special context, and to a colorblind person, they'll still seem fairly saturated. So those are special cases. The other thing this system does is it uses a CMYK color model. You might be familiar with that. That's the web print coat system, web press coat system, standard for printing. It's the most narrow color gamut that we have. And the reason I use that is because 20% of the population periodically experiences light sensitivity. It's called photophobia. And it's mostly women and it's mostly associated with migraine. There's a certain type of migraine that actually doesn't even involve pain. It's just light sensitivity. So it's very prevalent. And so this is a narrow. So what this does is it controls saturation. It puts limits on it to accommodate those folks that are periodically experiencing light sensitivity and photophobia. The other thing the system does is for people with low vision and other age-related diseases like macular degeneration and cataracts and that sort of thing. We have those contrast requirements, which we discussed earlier on the websites. And we have the standards 3:1, 4.5:1, 7:1. And so this is a key. And so if we look at, let's say, these two short dashes, what that means is you can pick colors from this column and from this column any color from those two columns, put them next to each other, and you'll get 3-to-1 contrast. This with the and you can see there's plenty of options here. You can start with this color and then you can match it with this color, for instance. The medium length dashes are 4.5-to-1 combinations. The long dashes are 7-to-1 combinations. And you see they're limited to a maximum of 16-to-1 because that there is one study. This is still kind of a newly researched phenomenon, but there is one study that indicated that 16-to-1 is the place where scotopic sensitivity can start. So they have limits of 16-to-1.
I think this is a relevant question now, but sure, tell me this, Wade, if it isn't. So often, and here's an example, white text on black is happening as a choice.
Yeah,
So often.
that's too
How is
high.
how okay, so yeah, I'm wondering how is it that's so uncomfortable? Okay, for me, no cataracts, no other things that I'm aware of. Why is my condition so much to black on white that I am having a hard time flipping to white on black? Or
Oh,
back to choices, right? I get to pick, but sometimes I don't get to pick.
yes, white on black versus black on white is interesting. So, um, first of all, it is there's plenty of research on that says that white on black is easier on the eyes. You might notice if you know,
Why am I
yeah, coders, almost all coders who are looking at, screens of text all the time, well, almost all of them are doing white on blacks. But it's disorienting if you're not used to it. Um, it's because our brain has been trained that the convention, the norm, what we're used to seeing is the black on white. So when you are faced with white on black text, it is very disorienting. It takes a while to get used to. Um,
so be patient and get used to it.
well, I mean, it's a personal choice, is what I'm saying. If you are experiencing light sensitivity, um, I would try switching to it for sure. I do also think that like my color um, chart, for instance, when I was working on this, I worked on a black background, and I actually so this is something that you'll when I release it, you'd be able to copy and paste it into any graphics software and just color pick from it.
Yep.
And I put a black background around it to isolate it, so that you can you know, see the
It makes
colors
perfect
better.
sense to me on the visuals, on the non-text things. It doesn't bother my brain at all, but it's
Yeah.
having a hard adjusting to the
Yeah,
text.
it definitely takes some time to adjust to, for sure. I've been viewing white on black text for a while now in a lot of situations, but my website is still the way it is because I don't want to go in and make all the changes to it. So this here next is an example of an image. So this is an image. Uh, I tested this on a lot of different images. This is just one of them, but so this is an image that I made. I color picked every color from my system. Um, and if you were to look at this, most people would not necessarily be able to predict which of these would have turned to blue and which ones would have turned yellow, right? So that's where color picking from here comes in handy. And then this is a colorblind simulation of it. So I purposely picked colors for the background that I would turn blue and colors for the main elements that would turn yellow, so that I would get this result. So I always like to say in visual hierarchy, make the main thing the main thing. So this was the main thing to me. And so um, that seemed to work out pretty well. And you'll also notice that I use outlining. What I realized is that if we want to maintain 3-to-1 contrast in complex images, um, the only way we're really going to be able to do that is to use outlining a lot. So this outlining, what it does is I made sure that this outline was dark enough so that when I color picked between here and here, or contrast checked between here and here, or this line in here, or this line in here. In every single place, was at least 3 to 1. So I could control the contrast that way. Um, and I also checked some of these cloud edges to make sure they were 3 to 1. But you see, some of these areas are less than 3 to 1.
Yep.
And so the way I look at it is we have signal. This is an information science terminology, but we have signal and we have noise, right?
Yep.
So we have to decide what needs to be signal and what we can allow to be noise, and hopefully it's beautiful noise. So I'm allowing some of these internal shapes to be noise, to have less than 3 to 1 contrast, because I think it adds value to the folks that can see it. But the main cloud shapes, as you'll see, are at 3 to 1, and you will be able to see those even with low vision. You'll be able to make out, oh, those are clouds. Those silhouettes of those clouds are kind of cool. I like that. I have this one wave here that I did a drawn line on to make sure that that wave punched out. Um,
Call that a white cap in real world.
yeah, it's a white cap. So that's
So
just one quick test
Samuel,
of it.
we're probably in a good, we're like a 4 minute maybe wrap,
Yeah, yeah,
and have to
sure.
jump on. But this has been amazing. So why don't you bring it to a finish for us, and then we'll play, and then probably
Yeah.
circle back.
Yeah, we can circle back. So I think that hopefully the main thing um, point that I made, other than just kind of the nuts and bolts stuff, is when you're applying those accessibility guidelines, okay, don't think of that as a task list, and that if you're just doing the minimum and checking off boxes that you're doing the best that you can. Um, the accessible guidelines are strictly quantitative. There's no qualitative part to them. And that's up to us to add the qualitative experience in. So probably the thing that sticks out the most is the way that I like to think of alt tags, and the fact that I don't actually think we should be using them hardly at all, and that we should be doing descriptions right in the body copy, because those descriptions will inevitably provide opportunities for us to not only describe the image organically, but to add context um, to why I decided to show you this image. And that's just better for everybody. Um,
Yeah.
and that's universal
That's a
design.
big learning for me today. I think that was very insightful.
Yeah, the more organically we can include things without using the accessible add-ons, um, and just make the experience that will make the experience better for everyone. And that's the very heart premise of universal design. And then, organization wise, it's really all about margins, and chunking information into sections, modules, and then having nice big margins between them. Um, Even though it might make a page longer and have a little bit more scrolling. I think by now we're all used to scrolling, right? It's not a big deal.
I don't
Um,
know. Hearing it might be a big deal. Above the fold, below the fold.
that is not a thing anymore.
Well, I think that your next generation is going to say, I don't want to click more than once and I don't want to scroll.
Well, maybe. I
I
mean,
predict
the
that's
thing
what's
that
going
you
to
have to
happen.
keep in mind too is that over 50% of browsing is done on a phone. So this is actually mobile. We should be designing mobile first. Um,
Fair.
and so this is what people are really looking at. Okay. And so there it is. I think there's a lot of scrolling. I do think hear what you're saying, Gil. I think you're talking about attention span and the fact that we have this rapid stream of media that is kind of in front of us, before us all the time. And we're swiping maybe as much as we're scrolling, maybe more.
If
Um,
it's not singing and dancing, it's not entertaining.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it,
yeah. But I
and then
guess in terms of, I do think that that's what we're talking about there is more of an entertainment experience. When I'm having an entertainment experience myself, I'm totally guilty of that as well. But when I'm having an informational experience, um, it's a different preamble, I like to call it. It's a different mindset that I'm here to get information. It's gonna this information has been configured in such a way for me to be able to access it and process it, and I'm going to um, follow that experience. I'm going to trust that experience. It's going to take me through it in a way that's going to be efficient. And so I think there's a mindset there that we have to keep in mind. Not all experiences are preambled and expectations change depending on what we expect to be getting out of it.
that's a lovely, I think that's a lovely summary. And then for me, my big wish out loud is when you download this video, can you put on our site now that you have access to our site, your video
Oh yeah,
and the organic words that will describe that link,
sure.
maybe your beautiful face or your ICU, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, because now you know where it goes and now you know what our intentions are. And then
Hmm.
you see how we're building this.
What
Um,
page would you like that at? On?
we're, we'll probably hit resources, videos.
Oh, sure. That makes sense.
Um, and then uh, the big idea is we're collecting data on this site and as a practice for us because I want these people to leave here knowing that this is a thing and it's a real thing and they
Mhm.
can put on their resume or they have an understanding about how this thing works
Yeah.
and they maybe say on their resume they practice it in some place and hey maybe here's the place. But eventually it'll end up on our library's website because this is a 4-year party with disability advocates, and we're going to keep
Mhm.
collecting broadly information that
Yeah.
we hope will not only our students and faculty, but also the community at large. So um, it's all a practice. It's all a big idea.
Yeah. And
So
keep
you
in
can't
mind
wait.
that these ideas, even though we were expressing them through Google Sites, any site builder, you can do these things with, you know, they're all pretty similar. Google
And with that,
Sites makes it a little easier. So,
sorry. With that, thank you.
yes, thanks for having me. I really enjoy doing this. So you can tell I have
I
a big
usually
passion for it.
tell students to link in with people, so they will be linking in with you, I'm sure, and sending a note.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn. I just passed 6,000 followers the other day. So I haven't been publishing articles on there lately because, well, that's a whole story, but I've been just too busy to do it. But I'm going to get back at it this summer. Um, so I do publish usually twice a month, what I like to think of as insights into universal design and for media. So, and I have a Substack too. Um,
Right.
and so
And
you can
the
follow
thing
me
about
there.
is you're gonna get notifications when something's published.
Yeah. And so the same thing I put on LinkedIn, I put on Substack. So it's billfisher.substack.com. Looks like that.
And Substack is free
Yeah, this is
subscription.
free. Yeah. I mean, some people charge subscription, but mine's free. This is that one you were talking about with the Olympic rings.
Oh, I was thinking about the Google, but Olympic
Oh, the
rings.
Google, that's right. Yeah. I think that's an older one.
But thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Okay. We'll see everybody. Good luck, and
So circle back and watch
we'll
this
circle
article,
back. Yeah.
and I'll circle back to you too. Appreciate it very much. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.